Amazing. Get the Green is our first event in our 2022 to 2023 event series. And with these events, we hope to provide resources to local organizations on varied topics around sustainability. You can always stay in the loop on Green Economy Peterborough's news and events by signing up for our e-newsletter, where we focus on all things green business in Peterborough and the Kawarthas. Jackie's going to put that in the chat for us. So for any new faces here today, Green Economy Peterborough is a local program and network that helps member businesses to identify, set, and achieve sustainability goals while improving their bottom line at the same time. Through coaching, educational opportunities, peer networking, and events, Green Economy Peterborough helps members to make reductions in emissions, water and waste, and engage in other sustainable practices. We are a project of GreenUp and proud to be a project of GreenUp, and one of many hubs in the Green Economy Canada network. Our network is a place for leaders who are ready to challenge the status quo and make the transition to a vibrant and inclusive net zero future. If that is you and you aren't already a member, please note that we are recruiting now for our network of local leaders starting in 2023. We are offering an early bird rate as well to those who join early before November 1st. So if you are interested or you know someone else who might be, please connect with me directly to learn more or join us at one of our upcoming membership information sessions, Tuesday afternoons through October 18th. And I think we have a link for the chat on that as well. So we're also very grateful for the support of TD, who for the past 3 years have generously supported green economy hubs across the network. We're able to do this work with the support of our sponsors, our partners, and our members. We have several member organizations here today. I'm not going to single anyone out, but hello to all members that are in the room. What we've heard from our members is that many lack the time and capacity to tune into funding announcements or seek out new opportunities that arise that might be applicable to them. This is why Jackie and I work on putting together that e-newsletter and information-packed events like this one to highlight opportunities that may be able to benefit businesses here in Peterborough and the Kawarthas. The big question: where's the green? We all know that the key to meeting our collective emissions reduction goals and getting the buy-in of local businesses on a large scale to become more sustainable is access to funding, those grants, those loans, and those incentives. Just this week, there was a new program that opened up to provide assistance to organizations seeking to implement ISO 5001. We've seen funding come through for EV infrastructure. We've seen home-based businesses benefit from the Greener Homes Grant. But we're continuing to keep an eye out for more announcements and ask ourselves, where is the green? And I think many of us are optimistic that more government grants will be coming to help us move the needle on this. But ultimately, if we don't get a heads up on them, we can't plan around this. So some of our local businesses are looking inward, examining the business case and investing in projects that will protect their businesses as energy costs continue to grow, grant or no grant. And lucky for us, we have 4 fantastic guest speakers today who will share their expertise and personal experiences to help us navigate all the options out there and get the green. All right. First up, nope, wrong slide, edit, stop share. First up, we have, please give a warm welcome to Susan Thomson. I'm gonna share her slides, but in the meantime, Susan is a director on TD Securities ESG Solutions team, providing advisory services to ESG solutions and sustainable finance products for clients. Since joining TD in 2006, Susan has worked in institutional money market sales, fixed income derivatives origination, institutional fixed income sales, and most recently government finance, where she covered public sector borrowers, as well as advised clients on green, social, and sustainability bond issuance. Susan sits on the International Capital Market Association Advisory Council, their Sustainability-Linked Bonds Working Group, Canadian Fixed Income Forum, and the TD Bank Group Sustainable Finance Center of Excellence. She holds a Bachelor of Arts from McGill University and an MA from the Rotman School of Management. Wow, we're lucky to have you today, Susan. Welcome. I'm just going to pull up your slides. Give me 1 minute.
Yeah, no rush. I can start talking. I know it limited me to 10 minutes, and I feel like I sent you too long a bio. I should have cut that down so that I could have more time to speak.
Well, we need to know. We need to know who's talking to us.
Absolutely. Anyway, it's a pleasure to see everyone here today. And Natalie, I appreciate how you welcomed everyone by first name as they joined in on the call. I think that's wonderful. It's very rare that we see that on some of these larger conference groups. So appreciate that. And thank you to everyone for having me here today. Just quickly, I'm going to go through a couple different topics today. The primary focus of my conversation here with you all is on SLL, so sustainability linked loans. So basically what that is a loan that is tied to some sort of sustainability target. So in a nutshell, we'll keep it from there. So I think I'll just go over a very quick developments that we've been seeing in the ESG market, a little bit of the product overview, and then really get into a little bit of the key takeaways from the sustainability linked loans. So I think, Natalie, if you wouldn't mind just jumping ahead to slide 4. Just a quick update on the market. So as you can see here, I'll get you to focus on or I will ask you to focus on this bar chart that you see here on the left-hand side of the page. Really what this slide shows is that we have seen phenomenal growth in the sustainable debt issuance market. So this covers all sorts of sustainable debt, whether it's your green bond, which some of you may be familiar with, or your green loans, your social bonds, your sustainability bonds, your sustainability linked bonds, and your sustainability linked loans. So again, just really focusing on that upward trajectory. 2021 was a barn burner of a year with almost 1.8 trillion of sustainable debt issuance. So that takes approximately, I'm going to say it makes about 12 to 13% of the overall market. So a considerable amount there. Year to date, we are a little bit lower. Market conditions have not been favorable over the last few months. I think the Susan Thomson trajectory for the rest of the year is to get to 1.2 trillion. So we'll see if we make it there. But again, really just focusing here on the growth that we have seen in the market as ESG makes its way into the normal course of everyday business. So Natalie, next slide, if you don't mind. So the question that most ask is, why are companies accessing the sustainable capital markets? Typically, we see 3 main reasons. And I think for the audience here, it's mainly the first one and the third. So basically, it's to demonstrate your ESG commitment and leadership. There is something to be said for the marketing aspect that comes along with doing something in the sustainable financing area. It really just aligns your finance activities to your ESG strategies, and it demonstrates tangible commitment because there's usually some sort of monetary either benefit or penalty for hitting or missing these targets, or something that you have in the area of sustainable finance. So it's a tangible commitment. It's really putting money behind your words or behind your commitment. So we see a lot of it is just to demonstrate this leadership. The second one, diversify investor base. This is mainly what we see on the bond side, as we have some investors who have dedicated ESG funds where they need to increase their assets that they have in these funds. So what they'll do is they will buy more bonds that have that ESG angle to it. So again, I don't feel that this is as applicable to this audience that we have here today. But again, that's sort of the second motivation that we see. And lastly, the third motivation is to crystallize the cost or savings of ESG initiatives. So generally, there is an economic benefit that we're seeing in existing ESG initiatives, and that's on the bond side and on the low side. And we're also starting to see credit rating agencies factor ESG into company credit ratings. Or on the loan side, we're starting to see some companies take these ESG factors into considerations as well. So as mentioned, first and third is probably what's motivations for the audience here today. Slide 7, so two slides ahead, there's a page break in there. So what are the sustainable debt products that we see in the market? We've seen green bonds or loans. I feel those are the most that people are familiar with. They've been around for the longest time. Probably 2014, 2015 is when we first started seeing the bonds or loans. But these ones here are the funds raised need to go towards a specific project category. So you can see here in the column, use of proceeds. That's really what that means, is that if you have a green bond or a green loan, any funds raised, in order to qualify as a green bond or loan, the proceeds need to go to a specific project or a specific project category. For example, green buildings, clean transportation. Within clean transportation, you would have your electric vehicle charging stations. The same can be said for social bonds or sustainability bonds or loans as well. Those are all project categories. What I'm here to speak with you about today is the sustainability linked loan. So that is the fourth one down, where the funding can be used for general corporate purposes, which adds a huge amount of flexibility because your funds aren't tied to a specific project. It's based on your ESG initiatives and some targets that you have and whether or not you hit or miss these targets. And I'll get into that in the next couple of slides. So what we have here is what's called market standards. And it's something that the market looks towards to give credibility. And again, I'll talk to this in the next couple of slides. And what we're seeing here is, as you recall, I mentioned that there is generally a financial impact. Again, if you look at that sustainability linked loan row, you can see that there's a 1 to 5 basis point adjustment on your financing. So what that means is if you hit the target, your predetermined target, you can expect to achieve a 5 basis point savings on the interest rate that you are currently paying. If you miss your target, you are expected to pay, so there's a penalty, a 5 basis point penalty for missing your target. So again, that just ties into the idea that there's a tangible commitment to your ESG strategies. And next 2 slides. And again, happy to answer questions at the end, or if they come up, feel free to post something in the chat and we can get to them at the end. So again, this really looks into the sustainability linked loan market. There are a ton of acronyms in the ESG world. SLL, if I slip into that, I'll try to remember not to, but as SLL, sustainability linked loan, is what we're here to talk about today. So this product has really seen a huge amount of growth over the last called 2 years. And again, I think a lot of it is tied into that general corporate purposes, use of proceeds. What this is based on is we have something called a key performance indicator, or a KPI. You can see that's mentioned here throughout the slide. So your key performance indicator is something that you have generally an internal or a publicly stated target. So greenhouse gas emissions reduction, gender diversity in the workforce. We can see water savings, percentage of green buildings, anything like that can be considered a KPI, or a key performance indicator. Attached to those key performance indicators is a sustainability performance target, or an SPT, and that is what you are measured against. So for example, we choose a greenhouse gas emissions reduction KPI, or key performance indicator. Your target attached to that would be, let's say, a 3% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions year over year. So every year when you have your loan, you would, and your bank would take a look at your target and say, did you hit this target or did you miss your target? If you hit your target, you would achieve that 5 basis point savings on your interest rate that we spoke about previously. If you did not meet that 3% emissions reduction, then you would pay an additional 5% over your existing interest rate. And it is reset annually, so it's not cumulative. So if you hit your target for 2 years in a row, you would have a savings of 5 basis points from your initial interest rate. And again, the following year, you would have a 5 basis point savings from, again, that initial coupon rate. So it isn't cumulative. So if you miss one, it always gets reset to your initial rate. So having said that, we can look at the market overview. So what we're saying is that the majority of these sustainability linked loan facilities, they have 1 to 3 KPIs. So 1 to 3 key performance indicators and associated targets that they are looking to achieve. Generally speaking, we see the majority environmental KPIs. So we have about 45% have an environmental KPI, which is generally related to greenhouse gas emissions reduction. It's just something that is very common. A lot of targets in the public audience are related to greenhouse gas emission target. So what we can see here in the sustainability linked loans by sector, consumers are the highest, not by a huge margin. So it's not necessarily sector specific that we see a lot of these loans coming out of. So it's pretty standard across the board. And again, if you just look to what is at the bottom right, the KPIs by metric, overwhelming amount is for greenhouse gas emissions reductions. We also see some related to renewable energy, waste, water, energy efficiency, and transportation. I've lost track of time, Natalie. I hope you're keeping track here for me. So we're good so far? Still good? Perfect. So slide 10. So what we have here is called the Sustainability Linked Loan Principles. And this is something, one slide, yeah, perfect. So this is something that we as banks will look towards just for some form of guidance. So it was put out in May 2020, and it was really in response to some of these loans taking more popularity. And they felt that it really needed something that banks could look to, that borrowers could look to, that would really give some sort of structure to the loans that were out there. So they issued the Sustainability Linked Loan Principles on May 20th, and then a year later, so May 2021, they have been updated again. So the LMA, so the Loan Markets Association, they keep track on the Sustainability Linked Loan Principles, making sure that it's updated to reflect the most current market practice. So what the Sustainability Linked Loan Principles, and here's another acronym for you, is the SLLPs, they have 5 core components. And this is what your banks or your lenders will look towards in structuring a sustainability linked loan for you. So it's a selection of your KPIs. So what are you going to choose as your key performance indicators? They'll also look towards the calibration of your SPTs. So what is that target that you are going to be measured against? And then there's your typical loan characteristics that you see. How long, what is the term of your loan? What's the notional of your loan? What is that pricing benefit or penalty that will be included in your sustainability linked loan principles? There's also a review and a verification. So what the LMA added in 2021 was that there is external verification required on the sustainability performance targets. So it's a third party saying, yes, this borrower has met or has not met this target that has been agreed to in the loan. And again, it just brings in that added stage of credibility to the loan. If we can look at these a little bit further, the next slides, please. So what this slide will show you is each of those components really broken down. So the selection of your key performance indicators, what we look towards is materiality. So is this material to your business? Typically, this is why we see the greenhouse gas emissions reductions being at the forefront of the KPIs, is because it is material to most businesses. So we take a look and say, is this material? And we recommend, as I said, 1 to 3 KPIs for a sustainability linked loan. And again, because we're measuring it, we're setting a target against these key performance indicators. It needs to be measurable or quantifiable. Next, we look for the calibration of the sustainability performance targets. Is it ambitious? So the sustainability linked loan principles, they require your KPIs to be material and your targets to be ambitious in order to be aligned to the SLLPs. And as a bank who backs these loans or funds these loans, we would like all these sustainability linked loans to be aligned to the SLLPs because it gives it added credibility to them. So again, we look for material key performance indicators and ambitious sustainability performance targets. And what that means to be ambitious, it needs to be above business as usual. So if you're looking at your greenhouse gas emissions reduction targets, and for the past 3 years, you have done an annual savings of 2%. For the SLL, we would want something more than 2%. So maybe a 3% emissions reduction percentage improvement year over year, because again, it shows something that goes just beyond the business as usual. And then we can look into the loan characteristics. As I mentioned, it's more of the pricing benefits or penalty that we look at here. Again, there is reporting that is required. You need to show your bankers that, yes, I have hit or missed these targets on an annual basis, and then they'll get into the third-party verification. It's usually an independent auditor that would be used for financial statements saying, yes, this borrower has hit or missed these targets. So last slide, I think I'm still good here, Natalie, just very quickly, just an overall checklist that we put together is financial material KPIs. Do you have KPIs that you could use for a loan? The next part is ambitious SPTs. Do you have targets that you could attach to these KPIs that would be above the business as usual trajectory? And then your KPI disclosure, are you able to provide these numbers on an annual basis? And do you have some historical data that your banks can look to? Luckily for everyone on the phone here, most of your banks, and here's my shout out to TD, my pitch here, is that your bankers are able to help you and walk you through these steps. So you don't have to do it alone. You don't have to go in not knowing, not quite understanding, having lots of questions. Most of the big banks in Canada will be able to help you through these steps. And as I said, TD is more than happy to help you along if anyone has interest. That is it. Did I make it?
Thank you,
Perfect.
Susan.
That's a lot of information. As I said, if there's any questions, feel free to post in the chat, or we can revisit after everyone else on this call has had the time to speak.
And we're also here to help the Green Economy Hub for members who are looking for that third-party, credential. That's our role too, to provide the measurement piece for folks. Okay, thank you, Susan. We are going to move directly to our next guest, Gail Moorhouse from Community Futures Peterborough. With a strong background in finance and technology, Gail is a strategic sales and business professional who has a solid reputation for helping small business. Gail has held senior sales and management positions for the past 15 years with major technology companies like Microsoft and built the national community channel programs for Ingram Micro and Tech Data. As an avid boater, she moved to Ennismore 5 years ago and quickly became involved in the community through the Chamber, Women's Business Network of Peterborough, and the Ennismore Sprouts horticultural group. After serving on the board of directors for Community Futures Peterborough for 2 years, Gail stepped up to the executive director role in January 2018. Gail is a risk taker and a seasoned entrepreneur who has insights into profit and loss. She uses her wealth of experience to consult with local businesses on finance and growth strategies. Thanks, Gail. Take it away.
Thank you, Natalie. And I want to thank you for all the information you provided me with. I'm running for Ennismore Township for council, and Natalie was very helpful in helping me fill out some of these questionnaires that we get for different active groups. So let me tell you a little bit about Community Futures. For those who may not know of us, we are funded by FedDev of Southern Ontario. So we're a federal program. We have been around for 37 years. We started with 1.5 million that we got from the government, and from there we have grown it to service more than 1,000 clients in the Peterborough city and township. And I think we're probably close to $40 million that we've been able to give out. Our current portfolio is around $12 million. And that happens because we give out loans to small businesses. They in turn have the ability to pay it off, and we recirculate that money back into small business loans as well. So who is our ideal client? Our ideal client is often those who don't qualify for funding through the banks, because we do small loans, but we do also do up to $1 million loans through partnering with various partners. So the ideal client for us might be looking for $20,000 to maybe buy new inventory or to grow a certain percentage of their business. They may be even interested in buying into a new business. They're generally what I'd call non-bankable, because they don't have the collateral and all the things behind them that other businesses or other banks or traditional lending institutes are looking for in providing the funding. So we take risk and making sure that businesses get started, but we don't just leave them with the money. We provide them with services as well through resources, training. I'm currently doing some one-on-one mentoring with another small business in Selwyn. And we help in a variety of different ways. Because we do take risk, it's often assumed that we also take high interest rates. Our interest rates are generally prime +2, might go up to 4 to 6, depending on the credit history of the client involved. So we really rely on the 5 C's of credit, being capacity, which is, now that I'm trying to remember them, they're just not coming to my head, but we'll come back to that later. So we're always willing and available to lend out money. We're sitting right now with probably about $3 million to be able to help businesses grow or start a new business or maintain. We also do a grant program. We currently do not have any grant programs right now. And the reason is because most of our grant programs are funded by the government. And with all of the funding that they put out for the COVID relief, they're not focused right now on new grant programs. So a lot of them have gone by the wayside. There is money still available, generally for grants, but they're through different kinds of specialties, very sector specific, based on the government's mandates and their priority sectors. So I want to tell you about a couple of different ones. Earlier, we had a quick conversation about some grant programs that have been delivered in the past. So what we have done is we did the delivery for Selwyn Township on the business reopening. So helping businesses who needed PPE or sterilization or any kinds of things like that. It was Selwyn's fund. We delivered the checks on it because one thing that we're really great on is doing the back end on moving money. We also delivered with PKED in collaboration the tour relief fund. And pre-COVID, we ran our own program called Ignite 100, of which Cambium was the winner of our Ignite 100 program. And that was really based on being innovative and being able to grow your business in different ways. So with that, I want to tell you about a program that is currently available. It is not specifically driven to sustainability. However, let me tell you a little bit about it. It's called Thrive Forward. The Thrive Forward program started in April of this year. It is being delivered by our colleague, Northumberland CFDC. So Community Futures in Coburg is who Northumberland is. By the way, there's 261 community futures across Canada. And so they're just one of them. We're 14 as an active group within Eastern Ontario, and we collaborate together. So my limits in loans would be, we do 20,000 up to 150, up to 300. But then you take somebody like Utomo Farms, we put together $1 million deal working with a number of CFDCs to be able to help them get the funding. So we're very creative in knowing how we can work and where money might be. I'd say that is our strength, is in going and finding money for our clients that is outside the norm. I want to go back to tell you about Thrive Forward because it is a new program. But what I like about the program, it is funded by FedDev as well. And the initiative kind of falls under the Jobs and Growth Fund. So that is a program that's happening with FedDev right now. And when you think about it, how does sustainability count towards that? Well, in most of the programs, there is a rating scale where they pick 5 areas in which they provide you a rate on it. And that kind of keeps us honest in that we're not providing bias when we're selecting who's going to get funding and who's not. So it happens with most of the programs. There'll be an advisory board that selects who gets the funding on it. So I'm going to give you the criteria, and I think you should understand the criteria for it. It'll help you understand why it would certainly apply to your organization. So what they're looking at is the key sectors are really around food, medical supplies, bio manufacturing, and a lot of areas within that. So that matches the government's mandate and their priority sectors. And how it's allocated is there's 2 streams of which you can apply. There's $25,000 for a business startup, and there is $100,000 for an SME. So if you go onto the website for Northumberland, you will see the 2 streams, and it'll give you the details as to which stream you might fit into. But when we get down to how the decisions are made, and excuse me for just reading off here, I want to make sure that we get you the right information. Thank you for putting Thrive Forward in the, oh, thank you, Braden. Good guy. So how is it decided? So the first part is based on is your business future-proof? So are you building on resiliency and business growth? And there's 20 points allocated for that. The next area is job impact. And again, there's 20 points allocated for that. And they're looking at full-time employees and the number of jobs that you're starting with now and what your potential is to create new jobs. So you're probably not going to hit 20 points in each of them, which means the next area is where you're going to, because of where you're playing, will be able to help you on that. And that is about going green or digital technology adoption. There's 20 points allocated for that, be it for clean tech or for digital adoption, such as cybersecurity, readiness, productivity enhancements, or operation resiliency. So it's pretty vague, but if you have a green spin to it, it gives you an extra 20 points. And that can really make the difference when you're getting to the calculation of how it's given out. 20 points are allocated to critical sectors, and I mentioned those before, being food production, medical supplies, and bio-manufacturing sectors. So those are the ones who are going to get the first allocation on it. And then the fifth category that they give, again, 20 points to is priority client pathways, diversity, inclusion, equity, and all of those other areas. So you need to understand that when you're writing an application for grants, you need to write it not so much to what your business is doing, but you really need to make sure that you're including the key words that the government is looking for in giving out their funding. So you're looking at inclusion, equity, all of the things that were measured on, diversity. You're looking at, does it fit within the sector? If it doesn't fit in the sector, if you're strong on all the others, you can still get the grant anyways. So, you know, you might say, well, I'm not in food production, I'm in something else, I might be in transportation. As long as maybe you could take the transportation side and show a move to clean energy, that would be something that would give you additional points too. You may only be 2 or 3 people in your organization, you're still going to get points if you're creating a job. It doesn't mean that when we're looking at small business in Canada, they're not looking for 50 jobs. In most cases, they're looking for the 1s and 2s that all add up and keep our economy going. And then the last one is making sure that you're future-proof. That's just more to validate that, you know, we want to know that we're going to be able to be paid back, because one of the success of our organization over 35 years is being able to work with clients who become successful. They're able to pay back their loans, often in a lesser time than the term of their loan, and there is no cost for paying it out early. We love them when that happens. Just helping from that perspective. So, well, we don't have any current funds other than this that's being managed through my colleague in Coburg. Please let us know if there's any way that we can help you. And Braden, who's on the line here as well, is our loans manager and would be able to help you in any way. So I'm hoping that has provided everything that you were looking for, Natalie.
Thank you, Gail. Yeah, I just wanted everyone to know about Community Futures and all the great work that you do to support businesses in our community. So certainly an option for a loan. Thank you, Gail. And Braden for piping in there. That was good. Amazing. So we're gonna pivot now. We're gonna move to talking to members that have successfully received grants and explore how they went about doing that. The first one, if her internet is okay, is Lesley Robb. I believe joining us from Nova Scotia right now, where she and her family have recently relocated. We've lost a lot of good ones out east.
I might be coming running back after this weekend though, so we'll see.
Did you want me to share your slides?
Sure, yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Perfect. And I'll just let everyone know who you are. Lesley is committed to cultivating a deeply sustainable model of business for herself and entrepreneurs everywhere. She has been inspired to rethink entrepreneurship and leverage her years of experience to help business owners make sustainability a part of their story by aligning their business practices, brand messaging, and visual branding. Before becoming an entrepreneur, Lesley was a graphic designer and art director. Now, Lesley is pursuing an MA in sustainability studies with a focus on sustainable entrepreneurship. And I'm Pinja, and now I'm going to share my screen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, so I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience as an entrepreneur. So thank you so much for the intro. Right now, a lot of my focus is on completing school and working with other entrepreneurs, but I do have a product-based business that I operated for many years in Peterborough, and that's how I joined the chapter there. And then also worked with Braden and Gail a couple of times in the community there that was extremely supportive. And I haven't been able to find anything that would be equivalent in Halifax yet, but I'm sure it exists. But they are very, very, very supportive, and they really know their stuff and are willing to really go out and help you out wherever you need some funding. So definitely check out Community Futures. But I'm going to talk a little bit about the experience I had in the past year in getting a grant. And I guess the simplest thing it comes down to, if you don't ask, you don't get it. So if you know, like a grant isn't just going to come fall in your lap, and funding's not going to come fall in your lap. You have to go get it. So I just have some very, brief tips on how to do that. Obviously, I'm not an expert, but I'll just share my experience with you. You can go to the next slide. And so these are my tips. So I'll just walk through the process that I went through. And if you have any questions, definitely, but at the end of the entire presentation, I'll be around and you can ask. And I also provide my contact information too. But I would definitely urge reaching out to some of the other organizations here as well. So the first thing is audit your business and determine where you need help. So just like you would with any other part of your business, you have to prioritize different projects. So if you're really, like we saw over the past couple of years, there were a lot of things that had to happen in terms of pivoting businesses and getting all kinds of different systems in place and different products in place and all kinds of things. So right now, you just have to audit, where do you need help and where do you want to make improvements. So for my grant, which I received from Desjardins, I wanted to really focus on a sustainability project. So that was a pretty broad category. Like, that could be a lot of different things. But I knew working with Green Economy Canada that I was having a negative impact with greenhouse gas emissions from shipping. And so that was something I really wanted to address. So when I went to go apply for the grant, that's sort of something that I had in mind. But this can happen anytime over the span of your business. You just audit, see where you need help, and then start kind of coming up with a plan for that. And then from there, you can seek values-aligned organizations that are offering funds for those types of projects. Kind of like Gail was saying, that there are many grants out there. They have specific criteria and you can apply for. So mine was sustainability with a shipping focus, but like Gail mentioned, there's lots that address different diversity and inclusion. If you're a BIPOC entrepreneur, there's many grants out there for you right now. So definitely looking to explore some of those. And then when seeking these organizations, make sure you feel good about it. So I felt good about the things that Desjardins was doing in their community. In my notes, I also mentioned Community Futures because I feel like we're very values aligned. I know that TELUS does some really great grants. So just making sure that where you're seeking the funding, that you feel good about it. Like you're not aligning with an organization that makes you feel, uncomfortable. And then understand the guidelines with absolute clarity. And this is where a lot of pitfalls happen when applying for grants. So an applicant might simply miss a detail or they didn't completely understand the ask. So get really clear. And if you don't understand, ask for help. And so once you're really clear on how the application process goes, it's now time to merge your needs, so your project that you need funding for, with the offerings to create a clear and convincing proposal. So this really comes down to what Gail was mentioning too, like picking up on some of that really key language that they're looking for, and then really understanding what kinds of information you need to provide to get the grant. This is where it takes some practice and some skill, and it's like a craft. So really being convincing, engaging, and then answering why you need it and what are you going to do with those funds? So how are you going to get to how are you going to get through the steps of the project that you were looking for? So that's, again, what Gail was talking about, resiliency. They just want to make sure that you're future-proof and that you're actually going to do what you say you are. So really outlining that. So yeah, I would definitely practice your writing skills. This is very, very important. And then finally, outline specific steps for how you will use those funds. So document each detail for that step and how you're going to get there, and provide dollar amounts for each step as well that demonstrate that you have a plan and you're going to follow through. So if you have a grant, you're applying for a grant that's $20,000, break it down. How are you going to, you don't want just $20,000. What are you going to do with that specifically? Like, how much is each item going to cost? So if you're going to hire somebody, or if you have to get some product, break it down so that they know that you really thought this through. With my Desjardins grant, I was really fortunate. I received $20,000, but for my project, I budgeted probably about like $12,000 to $14,000 to get everything that I needed. And then it was like just a shocking surprise to get $20,000, which was unbelievable. But having that extra funds come from that grant allowed me to focus on some other things that I wanted to do as well. So I was able to partner as like a seed sponsor for a local organization, a nonprofit. And then I was also able to invest in some DEI training that I've been wanting to do for myself for a long time. So I had the money that I needed to get my project done, but was able to add on to that as well, which was really awesome. So then after you've kind of outlined everything, yeah, like I said, aim high, but be realistic. So I could have aimed for the $20,000, but I really wanted to be realistic about what I needed for this project for a business of my size. And I think being realistic shows that you really thought it through, and they're gonna hopefully choose you. And then, like I said before, don't get the grant the first time. Just don't give up. Keep trying. Practice makes perfect. Maybe not perfect, but practice makes really good enough. And hopefully you'll get the grant after a few tries. And definitely, I know it's almost like another full-time job seeking the grants. Just reach out to your community. Again, like Community Futures would maybe be able to point you in the right direction, or something like PKD. But tap into your network, find out what's out there, and just go get it. So that's it. That's my presentation and my experience with Desjardins.
And I found my mute button. Thank you so much, Lesley. We really appreciate you being here with us. I know you've had some connectivity issues, but it all came through just perfectly. So no problems.
Thanks.
So we are running through our agenda here. Last but not least, we have Steve Wildfong from Lake Edge Cottages. Having spent 30 years of his career working in the GTA for large international IT and telecom organizations, Steve decided it was time for a change and acquired Lake Edge Cottages 4 years ago in 2018. Today, Steve and his family enjoy helping 300 plus families a year have fun in a stress-free vacation environment. Sounds amazing. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you, Natalie. Yeah, so as Natalie said, 4 years ago, my wife and I acquired Lake Edge Cottages. And it's a 70-year-old resort. It started as a fish camp in the 1940s. People have been coming here year over year. We have a 90% plus client return rate. We have 75% of our clients return annually every summer. And then we introduce 25%. So when I say 90% return, that's over. There's a chance that if you've been here once, there's a 90% plus chance you're coming back. And we're open 4 seasons. We have 5-star ratings on each of Facebook, Google, and TripAdvisor. So we've been very fortunate. We've had great clients. We don't really have a lot of, knock wood issues here. Clients are very good, very respectful. Some of them even clean their cottages before they leave. But we clean them anyway. It was about a year ago this time. We were busy in the middle of our summer, so I really don't look at grants or funding or any of that stuff when we're full out. But we heard about the TRF fund, and Anne and I, my wife, we thought about what's important to us. How can we make a difference? So having been here 4 years, the things that we looked at were let's make sure we understand how to run the business efficiently, number one. Number two is let's make sure anything that's broken, whether it's plumbing, whether it's new roofs, whatever, let's make sure all that stuff is working extremely well, and let's not wait for it to break. So we've rebuilt all of our docks. We put all new roofs on. We put in a new septic. We put in new landscaping. We've re-graveled our roads. We've taken out any dead trees that are there. We've cut up all the firewood. We've chipped what we don't use. We put it on our trails for people to use. We have 12.5 acres here, 450 feet. So we were now looking at how do we now enhance what's there. So that's maintaining. Now, how do we enhance it? So the whole clean energy idea really appealed to us a lot because it's something we feel strongly about. We look at our own family. We look at our kids. We look at the news we're hearing on TV. We definitely wanted to do our part, but we wanted to look at it as a whole. So we're looking at the environment. We're looking at how would something like this impact our clients and what are the economics of doing it. So it's something you want to do, and I agree with everything Lesley said. The thing I'm going to talk about more so that it doesn't overlap too much is really do your homework up front in terms of understanding your costs and your business case for doing it. Because when you go into something like this, there's a lot of moving parts to it. And when I got involved in it, a lot of the people that are contractors that take over the whole thing, a lot of those people are tied up, they're busy, and you're kind of one of several people they're dealing with. So I decided for this project, I was going to take over the project myself, and I was going to interface with all the different people, make sure I was comfortable with them, and then engage them on the project. So we're working with a lot of smaller firms with very strong reputations to help put this together, because our project, the scope of our project, when we looked at the TRF, we decided instead of just engineering the roofs that we had, if we were to win this money, we would go bigger than that. So we decided we would put a new building in. And working with one of the engineering firms, and I know JP's on the call, working with his company, Generation Solar, he gave us the ideas around putting a new building in and making sure we could get 100% off of hydro throughout that project. So and that was important to us, because if we're going to make it's kind of like go big or go home. If we felt if we could do it, we would, as long as it had a positive environmental impact, it was economical, and it had a positive impact on our clients. Customer service is number one to us. We never want to take anything away from them. We just want to add to it. And there is an ad here. We'll talk about that. But so those were the big things. So the actual opportunity then for FedDev Ontario, which was the one that we applied to, is called the Tourism Relief Fund. And it was around destination and it was around product development. So destination development and product development. We went product development. So what we were saying was, we're going to change the way we do business to make it more sustainable and friendly towards the environment. And that was kind of the main thing. But we were very passionate about it as well. And part of that is because of the history we have here. We have one client that's been coming here 52 years, and she talks about the evolution of the cottages since that time. So if you were here 52 or 70 years ago, there were outhouses, there were shower houses, there were sleeping cottages overnight. That's basically all they were used for. What we're looking to do is sustain the environment that's here. But in sustaining it, you also have to modernize it throughout. So we built our whole plan around, when we applied, around making sure that those key themes were inherent. And hopefully we're probably one of the few resorts in Ontario that's taking it to this level. So we want to be an example for other resorts as well. So if you look at the actual criteria, I'll just read through them briefly. I don't want to focus too much, but when we applied to the funding, it said you must be incorporated. You had to choose product or destination development. We chose product. We talked about that. It had to contribute to the economic development of a region. And the project takes place in a tourism dependent community. Well, absolutely. Peterborough, attracts 300 million of tourism revenue per year. And we're part of the PKT, Peterborough and Kawartha Tourism, sector. We had to illustrate a lot of detail around the project cost. So we had some of that detail. We didn't have all of it, but we had a lot of it when we were applying for this funding. And I would say that I learned a lot from talking to different people when we started to engineer how this thing needed to look. For example, concentrating as much as you can in one or two locations was important. And this is important because the more locations you have that are producing solar energy, the more complex and the more costly it drives your costs up, because you have to trench to everything. You have to aggregate all those lines back to a hydro transformer. So if you have to change anything, JP is probably laughing right now, but if you have to change anything on these hydro poles or on these amplifiers, or on these transformers rather, these things all come out of your pocket. So with the right guidance, you can make it more efficient. And so I'm comfortable with where we've come to it to date so far. So, but these are the key things I would say when you're, I know this is about applying for funding, but when you apply for funding, you have to also ask yourself, how much am I going to do alone if I don't get the funding, and where am I going to go if I get the funding? Am I going to do anything at all if I don't get it? And will I do something? So those were the main things. We had to submit our financial statements to the government, which Grant Thornton prepares ours. And then, we were thrilled. 4 months later, we got a call that we were selected. We couldn't say anything for months. And it was announced in July, and because they wanted to make sure they'd gone through all the companies that were going to achieve funding, and we were one of 31 companies that was awarded a grant, and it was for $85,000. The grant was up to $100,000. The premise being that they would fund 50 cents of every dollar that we were spending. So really that took a huge economic relief for us off our shoulders. I'm not sure we would have gone as far. What we did was we decided to put up that third building. It's a 60-foot by 26-foot, well, 60 by 30-foot roof roughly that's going to house these solar panels. So we reverse engineered it around how much solar energy we need, which happens to be 50,000 kilowatts. So we're about 110% of that. with this roof added to the 2 existing roofs. And we're going to use that building for other purposes underneath. It'll be a shed to store other things in the wintertime, including boats. And for the clients, we're adding on a patio at the back. It's going to be called the Sundog Lounge. And it's going to be an area for them to play ping pong and different things that will be on the back of it. And it overlooks a green space that we have with trees and so on the property. So, so that's what we're doing with the funding. And what else would I say here? So it's about 1,500 square feet. I think I covered most of the things in terms of, you know, that part of it. Right now, we're currently at the point of putting the foundation in. That goes in on Monday, and it'll be a week or so. It starts on Monday. So that's the concrete slab that'll be 60 feet long. The trees have been cut that need to be cut down so that it fits in the area, and those trees are being repurposed for good use on the property. Firewood, chips for the trail, and so on.
Takes a whole half an hour.
Sorry.
I think that
Oh, I
was
thought I heard
somebody's microphone was just on. They've turned it off, Steve.
Okay. So and kind of the last thing, why we're doing this in terms of the clean energy project, why we're making the investment. I think I went over some of these, but number one, we're passionate about it. We talked about climate change affecting all of us. We wanted to make a positive impact on the local community. And of course, you know, the future generations of families that come to live and to visit here. We're going to have signage up talking a little bit about the history of the property and why we're doing this. And it'll be co-signage with ourselves and FDO Development of Southern Ontario. You know, it's good for the business brand. It elevates our business brand, and we hope to encourage others to act. And it feels good, by the way. It feels great. The stress part of it is really at this point just making sure all the different pieces fall into place, because there are multiple moving parties that come and go, and each one has to do their part in order to make the last one work. So we hope to have everything up and running by end of year. And that's our goal. So back to you, Natalie.
Thank you, Steve. And we're just over the 3 o'clock mark, so we're going to go with some questions here. I think Gail is the first in line with her hand up. Oh, you're muted, Gail.
I do that all the time. Steve, I just wanted to mention, if you've been approved for FedDev for 100,000 and you're at 85, if you wanted to run another project for the 15, they would easily give it to you. Now, you're often needing to have matching funds. Come to Community Futures, we'll give you the $15,000. You repay us when you get your money from FedDev to make that happen. So if there is any way we can work together, that's the kind of work we do all the time.
I appreciate that, Gail. Thanks very much.
Are there any other questions in the room? We did have a good one in the chat from Scott earlier, but it looks like Susan handled it. Any other questions for any of our speakers? I wanted to know a little bit more about Steve and Lake Edge Cottages rig, if JP is still here. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what they're installing?
Yeah, sure. So Steve is installing something called a net metered solar energy system. So the way that works is solar panels capture sun's energy, convert it into electricity, and inject that electricity into Steve's facility. And for every unit of electricity that the system generates is a unit of electricity that Steve does not have to buy from Hydro One. And the time of day that it generates doesn't matter, because Hydro One provides this great service, which is called net metering, where any electricity that Steve doesn't need at a given moment goes backwards through his meter and goes to his neighbors. And but ends up as a credit on his bill. So he gets 100% credit for all the electricity that he generates, whether he uses it directly or not. And that credit can be carried forward for up to 12 months. So what typically will happen is if we're targeting a level of energy generation that is equal to his annual consumption, that would mean he'd be net zero over the course of the year. His net consumption from the utility would be zero, even though at any given day, it may be a positive or negative. On average, what happens is that he's generating lots of energy over the summertime, and the credit on his bill goes up and up and up. And then when fall comes and the sun kind of is less powerful, his credit evens off, and then he uses up his credit over the course of the wintertime. And then come spring, his credit is down to zero. He starts building up again.
Super, super cool. So excited to see what happens.
And if I can just add to that, the nice thing about that is we don't have to store any batteries on site, none of that stuff. That'd be another complexity and another big cost. That's all being stored on the hydro grid. And in the future, when you think about down the road, we're not stopping with this. This is part of it. You know, in the future, when we bring electric vehicles on site, they will play a role in helping us stay current with if there's a hydro outage. Hydro 1 goes down, for example, if that grid goes down, your battery can back up the house, as some of you may know, in your pickup trucks. All the pickup trucks are being designed that way. It's just that they're so early in the innovation right now. There's not enough supply on the market. We're not jumping into that market until we know more about them. But it's all promising what we're hearing, especially the Ford. It looks like a beautiful truck, but there's other ones too. So we'll be evaluating that. So it means that if you're here as a client and that hydro goes down, hopefully we have enough backup to keep your water pumps running and to have enough capability that it doesn't impact your stay here too much. And that's what that will do for us.
Amazing. And JP's hand is up.
Yeah, so if I could just add to that, there was a comment earlier about future proofing. And I think a clean energy system is helpful for a small business or small organization in the context of future proofing because it reduces your annual operating costs. If you can install a system with someone else's money, then you are producing long-term financial stability for your organization by reduced costs, and you're doing it on someone else's time. And I think that's a huge win for any small organization. And that includes not-for-profits. I mean, a not-for-profit that happens to own its own building, they tend to struggle for core funding every year. If you can knock back your core costs, then that's a huge factor for sustainability. I mean, financial sustainability for the organization.
I can add to that too, because I just looked before this meeting, I looked at our costs again to see where we're at this year with our hydro costs. And if I take hydro and I add the other reduction we'll experience by adding more electric heat is propane. We believe the two combined will reduce by about $10,000 a year. Well, if I look at half of what is being funded here through the solar, that means I'm paying the other 85,000. Right now interest rates are 5%. So let's say I'm paying 4,000 or 5,000 a year in interest, but I'm getting back, close to 10,000. That's huge for us because also those rates are going up every year. Our propane went up 50% last winter alone. Our propane is almost, I think it's higher now than our hydro costs. So no, that's significant as well. Now, the one thing I should mention is the building is kind of outside of all this. We're making that investment ourselves. That's a capital asset that we get value from as part of the business. That's not something that we're doing it to support this project. But I was looking at putting a building there earlier. So it's not really something I consider part of the business case for this. The business case is pretty cut and dry with the solar panels.
Okay, we have Kevin's hand up and then Joe in the chat. Go ahead, Kevin.
Thanks, thanks, Natalie and Gail. Congratulations on your run for Selwyn Council. Like yourself, I'm actually running for City Council in Peterborough, Tonabee Ward. We're both very brave individuals, I would suggest. By background, I'm a planning consultant, and I was Peterborough's planner for 16 years and have had my own company. Lesley, to you, I hope everything in Halifax, Pelagonians are safe. My daughter is a chef in Halifax, and she's been emailing us and texting us regularly. But my comment, Natalie, to you and others is I often work with folks that are looking to do something with their business or do something with their properties, right from their, literally from a serviette design to construction. And I would say that the majority of the municipalities that I deal with, not all of them, do not make these programs, or at least the links to fundings, known as part of their consultation process. Now, I'm aware the city of Peterborough has recently added in some of their pre-consultation a link to some funding available for barrier-free design and accessibility, but not on funding that could get at sustainable construction and sustainable development. I would encourage us as a group, or Natalie and others, to ensure within our catchment area to encourage municipalities, at the very least, make the link information available in the early days of process. Because again, we go to the meetings, we go with ideas, we start. We may have to proceed with traditional construction, or we contemplate alternatives, and we're not aware necessarily of these funding envelopes and opportunities. So that's a message I share, and it's certainly something that I would be encouraging. I think, Gail, I hear Selwyn's already taken up the opportunities. It's an easy grab. It's not a lot of work, just letting people know it exists as they're thinking about their projects. So well, that would be my one. And thank you for the seminar today. Very appreciated.
Thank you, Kevin. Before we go to Gail, I just wanted to note that, yes, so we definitely are hearing from the city that they're focusing on residential programs, even potentially some home energy loans from the city next year. Still really harping on them to work with businesses and try to provide those opportunities to businesses directly from the municipality. So if you get in there, Kevin, you have to get behind that. And we had a question from Dr. Joe. Yeah, it's a tough one. Are there any grants for solar projects at this point in time? We have those lucky home-based businesses have the Greener Homes grant that'll give you a little bit for solar if you qualify. But as far as I know, JP, you might know a little bit more.
Well, I would actually turn things over to Gail, because I think some of the things she was talking about are potentially applicable,
it could be applicable to
clean energy projects in general, though they might not be targeted at that.
Yeah, I think that's the question that I think Joe was raising. Is there anything directly for solar? And the answer on that vein is no, not at this time, unfortunately. Gail.
I think if you consider how you write a grant paper to be something like applying for a job, you take a job description and you go through and you find the keywords, and then you write your story to match the keywords. So that would be the first thing I would say. But I mean, there's other areas you can look, because when you're looking at what you're doing from solar and a variety of other areas, it's really about innovation. And there's a lot of grants for innovation. So it's looking at from a provincial level, a federal level, even a county. I mean, if we could start getting the county to put, they have what's called a community improvement program. If they started gearing that more to residentials, that could be something, that could be a lead for it. But it's really about, adapting what's there to your language, because there is money flowing. You just need to know how and where to get it.
I also have a question in the chat from Rhonda about rooftop tree planting. I don't know of any grants for that, but I certainly think with folks in this room thinking creatively about their grant applications, that anything is possible. I'm gonna have to wrap now. It's a quarter after. So if you have any questions in the follow-up or questions that I might be able to handle, please connect with me. We're so grateful to all of our guests and our attendees today. It's been an absolute pleasure to see all the interest generated. This is such an important topic. I'm going to be sending out a survey about our event along with the event recording shortly. And you can always suggest other topics you might be interested in learning about at an upcoming Green Economy Peterborough event. And as always, you can connect with me through greeneconomypeterborough.ca, book a meeting. I have lots of opportunities available to connect with businesses in Peterborough and the Kawarthas. So with that, thank you so much. I'll turn you back to your day and appreciate your time.